Okay.
Who's that?
Okay, go for it.
How's it going, Peter? Welcome to the St John Bosco Youth Centre here in Drimnagh. Could you give us a little introduction to yourself and what you're all about, please?
Yeah. Thanks very much, Daniel. My name is Peter O'Neill and I'm running as an independent in the Dublin South Central election. And I'm really glad to be here in Drimnagh today to talk a little bit about myself and a little bit about my background. I'd always been interested in politics, and I suppose that started from an early age, volunteering in my local community. I grew up in Bluebell and I live in Bluebell, but I volunteered from an early age with youth clubs, summer projects, so I always really enjoyed community work. And eventually I went to school in Drimnagh Castle, and then I went on to study social work in Trinity College. And I've been working for 17 years now with families and communities, and I've really enjoyed that work. And I suppose I really wanted to get involved with politics because I felt I needed to do something, because I had a lot of insight into what it was like for people and families on the ground. So I decided to put myself forward as an independent candidate and hopefully advance some of the issues that people are really struggling with at the moment.
And what particularly can you help, can you offer to Dublin South Central and in particular Drimnagh, the Drimnagh area?
Yeah. I suppose the one thing is that I'm very familiar with the area, Dublin South Central, but also I feel I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in helping communities and helping families. And I found myself, before I got involved in politics, I was often the one that was actually spearheading campaigns. Usually they're about some bad planning or some injustice. And I've also gained a lot of experience about setting up projects that actually help communities and help people. I have lots of experience working in areas like domestic violence, family support, and really good community development, because really to be able to represent this area well, you have to know what the needs are and you have to know what the community wants. And I'm really a big fan of really good consultation with people, because quite often a lot of big state agencies, they say let's do research, let's find out what they need, but they don't do it well. And I think it's really important that if you are a representative of Dublin South Central, you listen to the people, you speak honestly for them, and you speak with conviction. And also it's a very important election. As we know, the country has never been in such a bad state, and it's really important that, because what happens nationally is going to affect families locally and it's going to affect communities. So myself, I'm all about building better communities and supporting families and building a better country for us all.
Very good, Peter. As you said, it is a very important election because changes need to be made in this country because it's in a bad condition. What can you offer as a independent? What changes, like well, what influence can you have as an independent?
I think it's very exciting for independents now, and never before have I experienced such enthusiasm for candidates to be independent. Because quite often if you're part of a party, you have to follow a party agenda. But if you're independent, you can speak your own mind and you can follow your convictions. And I'd be very happy to speak for people after listening to what the needs are. There is a great potential for independents. I think there will be about 12 independents in the next Dáil. I think they're going to have a lot of influence, and I think they could be part of a government for change. And if you look at independents, they can do an awful lot. I always admired the late Tony Gregory, God rest him, on the north of Dublin. He was a very good, honest, hard-working man that worked hard for his community. Now, sometimes independents can abuse any power of influence. Like, there are some independent TDs who I won't name, and I think they've held this country to ransom because they just progress their own agenda. But imagine what you could do if you were elected as an independent. If you had power and influence, you could do it for the national good. Because as I said, what happens nationally will affect people locally. An example was the minimum wage, the way that was cut for everyone, social welfare cuts. So if an independent holds out for fairness and brings good balance, I think an independent can do an awful lot for the country, but also for the area that they represent.
Very good, Peter. In particular about Drimnagh, there's a low percentage rate of students that go on to third level education. What could you do to combat the inequalities in the education system?
I think there's an awful lot that can be done, and there are very good community projects across the city, and just across the river there we have an excellent one in St Michael's, and it's an early school leaving prevention programme, and it's really important is that we support young people and encourage them to stay in education as long as possible. And I know Drimnagh, like the area I'm from as well, and other areas I work in, that there is a high incidence of early school leaving, and there's less opportunities to go to university. I know I went to Trinity College, I was very lucky, but when I went to college there wasn't a tradition in my family or in my area of going to university, and it was only that somebody sparked that fire for me and said, would you not think of going to college? And that's what you need, and you need good supports, financial supports, mentors, there's the whole thing, the access programs like we mentioned, Trinity College, there's lots of things, and just education for life, and education is for everyone, and I suppose we need to have it local, support young people, children locally, and support the families, because I know a lot of parents find it difficult when their kids go to school themselves. They mightn't have had as much opportunity to stay in school, so maybe supports for them if they're looking for it. But I think there's a lot can be done locally very well, and the government has to prioritise areas where there is no tradition of going to third level education.
Very good, Peter. With regards to disabilities, the Disability Act was brought in around 2005, and changes were set out to be made, such as public buildings should be accessible to wheelchairs and things like that. I've seen on your Facebook page that you've views on such subjects. As you can see, around most areas, it's not very accessible for people in a wheelchair, and if anyone was to spend a day in a wheelchair, they'd realise that. What could you do to change that, or what views do you have on that?
Yeah, absolutely, and like yourself, I see it in and day out, and I was quite excited when they were trying to bring in legislation, and I'm very much in favour of properly researched disability rights-based legislation. But also there needs to be a full programme that tackles all the obstacles that people with disability encounter every day. Now, I have to say I've linked in with different groups, and I know lots of people that face this challenge every day. But one of the most important things is that the people making the legislation are informed very well by the experts in the field, and they're the people that actually have disability and experience disability, and we need to consult with them properly, find out what things we can see a lot of the obvious, but I know there's lots of things that I wouldn't be aware of. But what I need to do is to talk to groups, talk to individuals, what will make it easier, what type of legislation do you want, and how can we advance it. Like, I think there's a lot of lip service. You look at the building boom the last few years, and there was meant to be all new houses, public buildings were meant to be accessible. Well, we know they're not. And transport, again, the cutbacks in Dublin buses as well, I'd really be very worried about it. But it's one of my key agendas, and again, I would be very much in favour of really good, well-informed legislation that would support the rights of people with disability.
Thanks very much, Peter. If you could just summarise your agenda there, please.
Thanks, Daniel. The reason why I'm running in this election for Dublin South Central is I feel I've gained over the years a lot of insight into communities and families, and I feel it's really important. People have been so disillusioned with politics, and a lot of people are saying, oh, what's the point, why go forwards? But we need people with lots of experience that know the issues and that aren't afraid to speak up for injustice and inequality. And my insights and the experience that I have, I believe I would make an excellent TD for this area. And my agenda is not about self-interest, it's about supporting families, building better communities and a better Ireland. And I thank Drimnagh is good for this opportunity.
Thanks very much, Peter. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come down. And best of luck on your campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.